let's explore the village.
Meve shook her head in disbelief as she surveyed the landscape before her. The Nilfgaardians had destroyed everything in their path. Burned farms, trampled fields, leveled orchards.
The bastards.
She hissed.
They mean to cause a famine.
When the Lyrians reached Braithwaite, a small village near Aldersburg, they saw gaunt men and women, more bone than flesh, gnawing on acorns and boot leather. The invaders had requisitioned every scrap of the village's food stores and hauled it off to their nearby camp. In strained voices, the villagers begged the Queen to help them retrieve their supplies.
Milady, Frost'll come before we know it. Felt help us. Why not a soul will live to see the thaw?
Meve looked around at the blackened, scorched village, at the walking skeletons who dwelled in it. The suffocating smoke bellowing up from the fields sent tears streaming down her face.
I'll do what I can,
Was all she said. She knew this was not the time for a rousing speech. She needed to act.
Milady, oh.
The Lyrians reached the outer defenses of the camp where the Nilfgaardians had taken Braithwaite's food stores. Rayla delivered her report.
3 heavy infantry regiments, Nazari arbalists,
The warrior said.
and I heard neighing, so they've cavalry as well.
Meve said nothing, working it over in her head. The fate of the starving villagers weighed on her heart. But was it worth risking heavy losses to aid them?
The Nilfgaardians keep food in storage and watch it rot while peasants perish from hunger. Will we allow this?
The Queen said, addressing her soldiers. Cried the soldiers.
I didn't think so.
Meve said with a smile as she drew her weapon.
Lyrians, attack! Today our swords shall taste imperial blood!
Oh,
152, 154. Scrubbing duty again? Oh, gods.
yeah, yeah!
I fear not, the faith guides me.
Aye.
Oh,
When will you ever learn?
To the gloire!
Thing about slings, they hide well.
Praise be to the great sun!
Eh?
Destillat Zweifel!
Elherzer.
Yes.
Ever have a storm knock out one of your teeth?
You must sweat like a swine in that jacket.
So much anger and suffering. For what?
Your Grace, the battle's won. We've secured the storehouses.
Niamh managed to rout the Nilfgaardian troops and regain the stolen supplies. However, the Queen's good humor faded soon after the battle. Her soldiers began loudly demanding she not return to the village, but keep the food for her troops.
We've nigh empty bellies too, my lady. And whatever we give them, the black-clad bastards will just steal right back. Better to strengthen our own army than the enemy's.
Easy it would have been to take offense at the soldier's words, to accuse him of greed. But his words held much merit. Niamh's army had no less need for the food than the peasants, and in war-ravaged Edirn there were few chances to replenish their supplies. After a moment's hesitation, the Queen announced her decision.
We shall divide the food. Half we return to the peasants, half we keep for ourselves.
At first, the peasants were glad to see the soldiers. But their joy quickly turned to anger when they found Niamh had decided to return only half the recovered supplies.
And for a queen to stoop so low, robbing good folk, starving good folk. Ugh.
Niamh refused to argue with the villagers. Yes, justice was on their side. But in times of war, justice counts for little.
A thief who takes half your coin is just as much a thief as one who takes it all. Remember these...
Niamh's mount reared and flattened its ears, spooked for no visible cause. Trusting in animal instinct, Niamh jumped to the ground and felt tremors under her boots. At first they were faint, barely palpable, then grew stronger and stronger.
What's going on?
Niamh cried.
Why does the earth tremble?
Before anyone could respond, a scout from the forward guard let out a terrified cry. A moment later, snapped trees crashed down around them, and out of the woods came a 30-foot-tall stone giant.
Gods,
Whispered the Queen.
what is that?
A golem,
Isbel whispered back.
favorite servant of Nilfgaardian mages.
As if to confirm his words, soldiers marched out from behind the giant, clad in heavy black plate. Their leader, however, wore but a light tunic, and his hands glowed with a strange blue light.
Dithen Quan and Lyrian!
He shouted, giving the order to attack.
Glor and Ard Feyin!
Have it the white of an eye from half a league away. Bigger they are, easier they are to target.
The chase is on!
Utter your wish.
Adart!
Mom, break the mage's spell, and the golem's power will wane to naught.
Watch your heads!
Thing about slings, they hide well.
Ha! The mage! Kill the mage!
Ow!
Target. I fear not, for faith guides me.
Ha!
Hey? Ever have a storm knock out one of your teeth? it the white of an eye from half a league away.
Your Grace, it worked!
Raising her shield against the whistling rain of arrows, Meve fought her way towards the Nilfgaardian mage leading the attack. At close quarters, magic arcana would stand no chance against a well-swung blade. Meve roared, delivering a powerful blow. Her blade severed the mage's aorta, and drowning in his own blood, he fell to the ground. He choked out by way of last words. Then the blue aura coming from his hands flickered out, and the stone giant thundered to the ground in pieces. When the dust of the battle had settled, the Queen ordered her men to search the Nilfgaardian camp. In the mage's tent, they found a rare instrument used to communicate at a distance, a megascope. The crystals encrusted in its brass frame were still warm, meaning it had recently been used to conduct a conversation. The burning question was, with whom?
Isbel!
Yelled the Queen. The mage dutifully came closer.
This device. Could you activate it?
Yes, Your Grace. But are you sure?
I am. Get to work.
Isbel nodded, then began calibrating the magic device. Finally, something clicked. A light flickered on, and before Meve's eyes appeared the Guardian General.
Speak common, please. I know not your tongue.
Oh, forgive me. I thought I spoke to someone else. Good to see you in good health, Queen. Or ex-Queen, I suppose, would be the more apt title.
Instead of fretting so much over my title, give yours.
Of course. Where are my manners? Duke Adel Ebdahi, Grand Chancellor, Commander of Army Group East. I believe you've heard of me.
Of course I have. You are the coward who, instead of facing me himself, employed traitors to do his bidding.
What you call cowardice, I call diplomacy. And you must admit this diplomacy has proven quite successful. First Lyria, then Rosberg, and southern Edirne, all taken without any real losses.
Enjoy it while you can. Easy victories are short-lived.
Is that what you think? I'm afraid you're in for an unpleasant surprise.
Is that a threat?
No. A simple prediction. Enough of this. Why use this megascope? What is it you want?
I wanted to see the man who's butchering Edirn. The man responsible for the deaths of thousands of women, elders and children.
Then your desire has been satisfied. It was I who gave the order to cleanse this land of unwanted elements, to prepare it for settlement, for...
Unwanted elements? Those are living folk you speak of.
If you were to look at this war in historical perspective, considering the wider geopolitical context, forget it. It's impossible for you to grasp. Farewell, Your Majesty. Or rather, till next time. For there will be a next time, I assure you.
A quiet fell over the tent. The Queen stepped outside, squinted her eyes against the glare of the burning fields, and swore to herself that when she did see Grand Chancellor Ardal ep Dahi again, he would be a whole head shorter.
All destroyed. As if nobody lifted a finger against the Nilfgaardians.
King surely ordered all his armies to return to Aldersburg. Took cover behind its walls.
Took but one damned week.
So we found the rock. Perfect. Still don't know where this is though.
$152, $154.
Egroto dum anime est, des est.
sail!
I smell a leak.
Scrubbing duty again? Oh, gods.
You mad? Don't shake that!
Hey?
Estella Zweifel!
It's not too late to walk away.
Elherzer!
What do you want of me?
We'll catch 'em all!
Yes!
Ever have a storm knock out one of your teeth?
The chase is on!
My prescription, a bit of bloodletting.
I've hit the white of an eye from half a league away.
A highly curious case.
Bigger they are, easier they are to target.
In retreat!
Ah!
Coming across a small brook, Meve ordered her soldiers to replenish their water supplies. When they returned, it was with empty water skins and troubled expressions.
Milady, the water tastes of blood. Not like black pudding, mind, but rancid, filthy.
Meve had no choice but to march on. She gulped dryly and wondered how to interpret this strange event. An omen, perhaps? A warning from the gods? She soon learned the truth. Following the brook upstream, the Lyrians arrived at a small pool. Bobbing on its surface were dozens of corpses. A young woman caught Meve's gaze, her long hair spread delicately atop the water, wide-open eyes reflecting the sky, a fine nose peppered with freckles, and a gaping wound slashed across her throat.
We shall stop here,
The Queen said calmly.
and give these souls a proper burial. Reynard, send scouts. Tell them they are not to return until they ascertain what has happened here.
When the scouts returned a while later, they brought with them a barefooted peasant they'd found hiding in the woods. They claimed he hailed from Horton, a nearby village, the village whose inhabitants had been murdered.
Then black-clad wretches stormed the village, milady. The devil Freegave at the fore. Rounded us right up, took us down to the lake. Whole village mined. Then chop, chop, and splosh, splosh. It was I alone gave him the slip.
Meve listened to the man's tale, then placed him in the care of her medics and ordered the Lyrians to break camp. She rode at the head of their column, Reynard at her side, her knuckles gripped white on the reins.
Do we know where this Freegef is stationed?
Our riders report he's pitched camp to the east.
Then let's pay him a call.
They killed all, like Rosberg. My lady, please, make them pay.
Milka, Bezrad, Kristan, all killed. Souls.
The Lyrians had no trouble finding Vrigef's camp. It was the size of a sprawling town. Meve stopped her caravan and called for a council. The first to speak was Reynard.
Seems our scouts were both right and wrong, Your Grace. They did pinpoint General Freegef, the Butcher of Horton. Unfortunately, they underestimated his detachment. It is much larger and better armed than our own.
That changes nothing.
Meve said, forestalling all protest.
If I leave him unpunished, without so much as an attempt, I shall never be able to face my reflection again. We must attack.
Reynard bowed and passed the order to the Lyrians. Later that same day, Meve and Vrigef's forces stood face to face on the field of battle.
Freegef! It's time you pay for your crimes!
I smell a leak.
Mercy, I will.
There! Freegef! I see him! We've got to catch him!
Whoresomes.
Hey? ever have a stone knock out one of your teeth?
We'll catch 'em all!
Have it the white of an eye from half a league away.
The chase is on!
Thing about slings, they hide well. Hey?
Got him! The rest should surrender afore long.
The Lyrians won the day, despite their foes' distinct advantage. Historians later ascribed Maeve's victory to her light troops' superior maneuverability in the difficult terrain compared to the plate-clad Nilfgaardians. But if you ask me, that wasn't it at all. A storm of fury had been quietly gathering in the Lyrians' hearts, a squall of rage stoked by the Nilfgaardians' unparalleled cruelty towards the conquered. And no one embodied this barbarism more perfectly than General Friggeff. Maeve's men were ready to sacrifice anything to see him punished. They dragged the defeated general before Maeve. The Queen wished to learn why he'd ordered the execution of an entire village. How the Nilfgaardians could possibly justify such a crime.
2 weeks prior, I'd sent a detachment to Horton to procure feed. Captain Gaynor commanded it. While he was verifying their grain stores, they barricaded him in the barn and put it to flame.
The Queen listened to the general's story, her face a mask, betraying nothing.
Murdered. One man was murdered.
Friggeff raised his eyes to Maeve's. The Queen was surprised to see them wet with tears.
Yes, my lady. My son.
The general's simple words bore pain, grief, and a thirst for revenge that would never be slaked. The Queen had to decide what to do with Friggeff. No doubt the general had earned punishment, the harshest possible at that. Yet, such a weighty personage could fetch a hefty ransom, and Maeve's army desperately needed the gold.
My father taught me to respect the generals of my enemies. That even in captivity, their arms should not be taken from them. Their guards should greet them in salute.
The Queen said.
But you, Friggeff, you are no general. Merely a cutthroat dressed as one. You shall die like the good folk of Horton. Quickly. Summarily.
Frigga received the Queen's decision with sang-froid. He neither struggled nor begged for mercy. He simply laid his head on the trunk. A short moment later, it rolled onto the ground to the Lyrians' deafening applause.
Still get that gold, that's awesome. Oh, that was a good choice. I mean, come on. You went overboard. Overboard. Let's go this way. Let's see what's happening over here. Oh, elves. Try all the rock ties.
Hey? Ever have a storm knock out one of your teeth?
black lads were supposed to grind their teeth against our walls. Bloody empty promise by our leaders. Commander, onward to Abbey. Bloody idiot.
Get a place for me in your ranks, Your Majesty. I'd so like to serve you.
You're a new recruit. That's awesome. Someone's here. Eddie, we found a group of farmers languishing in the barn. Their skin is covered with sores. Someone heard a flesh and blood look at it. They beg for coins to state their hunger and thirst, as they would know what strength that was worth in the fields. Sure. Sure. There's a unicorn over there. Hey, unicorn over here on the bridge. I'm wondering if it's actually a unicorn that's on the bridge. That's very interesting. So I found out there's loot over here. So, puzzle over here. Let's do that puzzle and go over here. Puzzles are fun, but sometimes they're annoying. Because I prefer the regular battles, honestly. The regular battles are funner than the shorty battles. Just a puzzle. So. Probably there were pages or something else here. We Nadrians have retreated with face demanding. Have us cleanse the chest of spells and curses before we. Ah, good thing we have a spell. Card. What's happening here? Rot. Pestilence. The under abilities and flash under these are also pestilence for monsters. Yeah, just want to flee or fight back. What defense is there against an invisible enemy? When even air and water pose risk of us stolen people that move all corpses from the board. Oh god. They're just allies by tree.
Give me a target.
Oh. Sorry, restart. I think I have an idea now. I need to go with such a lizard.
Give me a target. Ballista, your command. Armor won't save. One boat's all I need. Give me a time. Arbalist at your command. Armor won't save.
That was interesting. I might try to redo that. This thing there. I want to build that point of interest. That's over here. Where is it? Here? Okay, there it is. Oh, no Guardian Camp. Down there doesn't look like Guardian Camp, it's Guardian Mansion. Okay. Build the mansion next then. Let's go do that unicorn.
A taxidermied unicorn. Strange. What are your orders, Your Grace? Shall we take it?
I've no notion what one could possibly do with such a thing. We ride on.
Isn't this Yennefer's unicorn? Does that mean that Yennefer is nearby? Is Yennefer this way?
Meave's Lyrians were traversing a wood when they heard the loud, drawn-out blast of a horn.
One of our scouts?
The Queen asked, clearly perplexed. She turned in her saddle to face Reynard, who shook his head.
Strange. Gascon, appoint a few of your strays. Ones who know how to blend in. Have them sniff out who blows that horn. And why.
The scouts returned a short while later with their report. Soldiers had pitched camp in a nearby meadow. They wore Edirnian uniforms, cut by sashes bearing a golden sun. They addressed their leader as Fulberson.
Know the name?
Rayla said.
Fulberson went over to the enemy first day of the war, took his whole division with him. Your Grace, a chance like this won't come again. Let's teach the traitors a lesson.
We must send a strong signal. One all the North will hear. From the Yaruga to the Dragon Mountains.
Announced the Queen.
Whoever collaborates with the invader shall pay with his head. Prepare to attack.
Rayla nodded, clearly pleased. The Lyrians surrounded the meadow marked by their scouts. Moments later, a flaming arrow pierced the sky, giving the signal to attack.
Is that Queen Maeve? To arms! Watch your heads!
101, 102, 103. Hundred and 52, 154.
This man has suffered much.
Catch!
Scrubbing duty again? Oh, gods.
Yeah, yeah! We'll catch 'em all!
To thee, ni gloire!
Mercy, your grace. We surrender.
The traitors, perhaps used to fighting unsuspecting foes, stood no chance against the determined Lyrian attack. At its conclusion, Maeve personally knocked Fulberson off his mount, then tore off his visor. The face she saw evoked more sympathy than hatred. Fulberson was an old, sickly man, his skin pale and blemished. With great difficulty, he pulled himself up on his knees, then extended a shaky hand in pleading.
Your grace, have mercy. The Nilfgaardians forced me to treason. They threatened torture.
Maeve felt her soldiers' eyes on her. They awaited her decision. How would she treat this traitor? Would she really execute him as a warning to others?
I hereby dissolve your division, Falberson. And you, Surrender your sword and be on your way.
The traitor threw himself at the Queen's feet.
You've shown mercy befitting a truly great ruler, your grace. 1,000 thanks. To the west of here lie my lands. Visit me. I shall throw a sumptuous feast in your honor and provide a generous donation to your fight against our common foe.
Meve ordered Fulberson to stand. Her Lyrians reluctantly stepped out of the departing traitor's way. When he passed Black Rayla, she spat at his feet.
I just couldn't do it. So this is his mansion, I assume.
Meve and her Lyrians arrived at Fulberson's lands, home of the traitor she had let live. He greeted the Queen with full honors. In ceremonial garb, a platter of bread and salt held aloft.
Your grace, 'tis an honor to welcome you to my humble abode. Please, come inside. A fattened piglet already turns on the spit. Soon I shall fetch my best wines from the cellar.
Meve, having lived on nothing but salt pork and gruel for weeks, was tempted to accept the offer. Black Rayla, however, was strongly against it.
Mom, forgive my insolence, but to eat from a traitor's table is foolish. Don't do it.
Oh man, I don't know.
Heeding Rayla's plea, the Queen declined Fulberson's invitation. Clearly saddened, he escorted the Queen to the bounds of his estate.
I thank you once more, your grace,
he said, bending to kiss her hand.
And I swear from now on, I shall support the North as best I can.
Meve nodded, then went on her way. She wondered whether the old man would keep his word, or, as soon as the Lyrians disappeared over the horizon, once again don an imperial crested sash.
'Tis a great pity your grace hasn't time to feast with us. From here...
It's probably a trap, honestly. I should have hired him right now.
As Meve passed the city of Harmelin, one of the peasants she'd saved from Nilfgaardian captivity requested an audience.
Be taking leave of you here, my lady. Folk from our parts lives in Harmelin. We'll manage. But, my lady, we thank you for taking pity on us, time and again. We've nothing, my lady, or near's enough. Black-clad bastards took all's worth taking. Except in this amulet. Been in my family for ages, kept us from harm. May it do the same for you.
Meve wanted to say she did not believe in peasant superstitions, but when she took the ivory pendant in hand, she felt a curious warmth from it. The peasant bowed, then joined the others as they trod off towards Harmelin.
We're safe behind these walls. At least for now we are.
The Lyrians stood within 5 miles of Aldersburg, when the road, which until now they had travelled alone, suddenly filled with all manner of folk. Peasants, merchants, and wounded fighters in tattered uniforms. They trod solemnly in the opposite direction, their worldly possessions on their backs.
Aldersburg's fallen, my lady.
Sighed one of the refugees with a forlorn shrug.
Outer walls breached. King still defends the old town, but black-clad goats are winning. You'd best turn back before it's too late.
We've nowhere to turn to, good man.
The Queen said, then spurred on her horse.
Follow me!
The Queen galloped so fast the wind squeezed tears from her eyes, the Lyrian cavalry close at her heels. Hoofbeats thundered down the high road, and the crowd of refugees parted, making a path for the charging riders.
Faster! Faster!
Soon they set eye on Aldersburg. A red glow filled the horizon, the wind carried screams and the clanking of steel. The once proud city was quickly turning to dust in the Nilfgaardian sun. The Nilfgaardian force moved to block the Lyrians' way. Without slowing, Meve cut down the infantryman who tried to drag her from her saddle with a hook. Her head in a winged helmet fell to the ground, leaving a bloody track.
Lyrians! Attack!
Meve shouted.
Take no prisoners! Bloody hell! You shan't stop me. Not now!
Yeah, yeah! Nilfgaard!
Catch!
Bigger they are, easier they are to tug.
thing about slings, they hide well.
My boots got sand aplenty in them.
Hey?
Make love, not war.
What do you want of me?
Ever have a stone knock out one of your teeth? I've hit the white of an eye from half a league away.
To thee, Nigloire!
We'll catch them all!
Alba! We got a job to do. There, Igloire!
The chase is on! Eddie Gloire.
You must sweat like a swine in that jacket.
Ow! Gloire and Kazer! Discipline. That's what you folk lack.
Prepare to fight, if you've any honor.
Your Grace, all that was but their rear guard.
The Lyrians managed to scatter the Nilfgaardian battalion, one of many besieging Aldersburg. Their scouts brought before the Queen a prisoner freed from the invaders. Neve inquired about the situation in the city.
Turn the right slaughterhouse it has. The Imperials, King had the city cleared, my lady, but didn't budge himself. Holding out with his guard in Old Town, walls still standing there. Said he'd fight to the end. Come with me.
Neve weighed her options. The situation looked dire. Demavend, to whom she had come for help, needed help himself. Nilfgaard enjoyed an overwhelming advantage. The small Lyrian detachment stood no chance of breaking the siege. But to retreat, surrender, that was not something Neve did.
The Nilfgaardians do not expect a relief force. Rayla, you know Aldersburg. Can you lead us by side streets to the Old Town, that we may avoid the largest part of the Nilfgaardian army?
The warrior nodded, and without waiting for any further orders, strode out in front of the party. Reynard followed her with his gaze, clearly troubled.
And what then, Your Majesty? We burst into the lion's den and...
And we pray the lion chokes. Follow me!
The walls, crushed and breached. The lower town in flames. Hundreds, thousands wounded. Thousands more.